therein do not necessarily reflect those of News Web Radio Company or its management.
Hey guys, another episode of Life, Love, and the Grind. I got to be honest, Sean, things are getting a little scary out here, changing a little from the last show we had. And
it's not as fun as exciting as we usually have it. We're kind of excited to come and talk with these great guests. We still have great guests.
We have a little bit more dangerous
great
guests, but I think it's more of an informative topic. Actually, today I want to tell you about the two guests that we're very excited to have. One is business manager of IBEW 1220. And then secondly, we have Dr. Fakhruddin, who will be joining us.
Yeah,
Dr. Fakhruddin, who's going to be talking to us about what's going on with this corona scare, what we have to worry about, what's going on. So a very, what I believe is an important show. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about essentially is when I called John Rizzo, business manager at IBEW 1220, there were certain things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about what's happening with WGN's merger with Nexstar, with, gosh, there were so many things with the Marquee Sports Network, and we'll still talk about this, but our world has fundamentally changed, and the world of a lot of our members have changed, so we're going to be getting into that. But Sean, tell me what it's like on the streets and the building trades. I hear...
well, so far, everything's still going. I mean, as far as we know, job sites are still up and running. I mean, the one thing about us union members is that we have a cultural way of working sick and kind of showing up, because if you don't show up, you don't get paid.
You know,
so
that's, absolutely.
It's important to keep safety. You know,
you know, same thing with broadcasts. A lot of our freelancers, a lot of our people who are doing sports remotes, if they don't show up, they don't get paid. They can't feed their families. So that is fundamentally, like you said, I don't know if it's a culture or more of just a necessity, but there is that desire to go to work and get the money that you are supposed to make. But we got to talk about unemployment too. I mean, you've heard what's happening in the sports world.
It's shutting down everything's shutting down.
Everything's shutting down. And the people who are out there trying to cover sports then have to worry about, well, how am I going to feed my family? What's going to go on? It's a very real health crisis, but it's turning into a very real economic crisis as well. So I'm sorry, John, whereas I thought it would be more of a broad spectrum of conversation, it's going to be pretty focused on what's going on in our world. John, first of all, tell us a little about yourself and what IBEW 1220 does.
Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Taking the risk.
Let's see, what can I tell you about myself? Pretty boring. So there's not much to tell. I live in the burbs. Grew up in the television industry. So since about 24, 25 years old, started working independently as a freelancer, working in corporate side entertainment, doing concerts, doing a little bit of local sports at the Allstate Arena. Back then it was the Rosemont Horizon.
Now that doesn't sound boring to me. It sounds like you were kind of in the thick of things.
Oh, that's my work life. The personal life is pretty. It's not worth the time. But as far as I live in the burbs. Have 3 lovely daughters, wife, just trying to make it through, and have enough toilet paper to survive. That kind of stuff.
There's none left.
There's none.
I got some, so I'm willing to barter. Anyone got Tito's?
Well, I got the Tito's, but the toilet paper is completely out everywhere.
You've probably been getting a lot of calls too, John, from members. I know on the Nabets side of things, we've been getting a lot of, gosh, would you call it just anxiety? Just anxiety about...
It's kind of panic right now. And I don't know how much of it is from at least the building trade side on my end. I don't know how much there is panic. But I know that just the shutdown with schools and... it's a really kind of I don't want to say disaster, but it's kind of an economic disaster when things that kind of we take for granted shut down and people aren't able to make money.
Absolutely. Certainly when sporting events are shut down, it's affecting the people who are covering sporting events, of which multiple of your over 700 membership does, right? Tell us about the typical work that they do, because I'm sure our listeners and viewers have watch their product, but what is it exactly that your members do, just to give a better context?
Well, it's not just sports. So we do a wide variety of things. So we have the brick and mortar television stations, which is, you report to it and you go do news and whatever local productions. There's very few local productions anymore as far as television shows.
It used to be Bozo, right?
Used to be Bozo and a couple other things in studio.
So those were IBEW guys that would...
Yeah, those were all IBEW guys, 1220 guys. Huh. I come from a world where we did sports and corporate type of stuff, entertainment. The stuff in McCormick Place, Navy Pier, and those types of things. So a corporation would come in, maybe they'd bring in, say, Journey, and do an opening act for, say, all their other corporate employees would come in. Stuff for Arthur Anderson, where they would rent out, one of the stadiums or things like that. So I've done a lot of those types of things, and those are pure freelancers. Show come in for 1 day to 4 days to 2 weeks, and then disappear. And then it's what do we do next? We do some radio. Then we have the sports side of things, and those are usually booked for seasons. So football season, golf, NASCAR, those types of things. So you could be on a 1 week gig here and then fly across the country and do another week there. So we have people all over the country doing all kinds of sporting events. I've got people as far away as California in my local that will travel to New York to do a gig, then go to Miami to do another gig, then back to California or Texas or Milwaukee. So they do a lot of stuff. Now with this stuff shutting down, there's concern. I wouldn't say it's outright panic. It's more, how am I getting paid? Or am I going to get paid to sit home? Because if I'm not getting paid to sit home, I want to go to work. And I'm going to go to work. And, there's new names for these types of people, and, they call them super spreaders and that sort of thing. If they get exposed, and because they travel, they're going to be, if they're exposed to the virus and they work alongside these people on any coast, what have you, it's going to be a problem. So asking them to stay home sounds good in theory, but unless there's a paycheck coming in, they're not staying home.
Well, and that's the danger of the gig economy, right? That you're out there, you have to hustle every day, or as we like to say on the show, grind every day, because if you're not out there grinding, you're not out there earning. But again, when you combine this with the super spreaders, you have a financial woe or you have a health woe. And so what are we telling our members in terms of what we need to do to get past these challenges?
Apply Grubhub. That's really what, if you're into that type of gig economy, you're going to have to hunker down. I think that's why we've seen the hoarding of all these products and stuff. Our folks are just willing to fight a little harder to stay active and stay earning. What we tell them is the basics, wash your hands, yada, yada. Everyone's heard it ad nauseum, but, you got to take care of yourself. You got to wipe down stuff. Our folks, when they were going to do sports, we had a whole laundry list of things while the sports were still happening. So the NCAA tournament, for example, and how that's changed. They were going to do the events to empty stadiums. And in order for our folks to feel safe, everybody would be issued their own personal headset, their own personal windscreen. So don't worry about cleaning it. You get your own right out of the package, the sponge, everything. Electrostatic sanitizers were going to be put in the trucks, and the sanitizer would stick to the consoles and everything else that you touch, so that it would kill any virus or bacterias. And then that eventually evolved when two of the guys from, I forget, the LA basketball team got infected. I may be wrong on it. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge sports guy.
Neither am I.
Just covered for a living.
But if you're on the floor with a camera and you're chasing these guys around and you get some sweat on you or what have you, forget it. So the stations or the networks did the right thing and said, they're canceling. We're pulling the plug. We're not going to try for it.
I know as a Nabet member, Nabet vice president who represents a lot of these members, my phone has been going off the hook regarding what do we do next? Do we file for unemployment? But I think a lot of people are realizing that, hey, listen, this is unprecedented. This is something that companies haven't dealt with, the unions haven't dealt with, and we haven't. They're just looking for guidance. Our country
hasn't seen anything like this. I just got a text that said J.B. Pritzker is ordering all bars and restaurants closed until March 30th, starting tomorrow, and that was just reported from NBC.
They're saying DuPage County, starting tomorrow, is doing a disaster proclamation. I mean, it's something. What does that even mean? We haven't seen that.
And my fear is in a country where 45 to 55% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, where are we going if people miss 2, 3, 4, 5? I mean, where does it end? That's my fear. I mean, the coronavirus and the sickness, which we'll hear from Dr. Atif a little bit later, that's a fear. But this economy that doesn't keep booming, where do people go when they're not making money?
Well, first of all, I'm going to panic because I'm going to starve to death if they're closing restaurants.
And as I'm
I
saying,
don't know how I'm going to
bars.
eat. So in bars,
Where
so,
am I going to go?
you know, where am I going to get my cheese fries? You know, I mean, I got a little reserve to. I'll probably outlast both of you, but yeah, that's going to be tough because you know, quite frankly, in a gig economy, again, super spreaders. You don't think about your waitress or your waiter or the bartender, where somebody sick goes to them.
Right.
And then you go to them,
and
then somebody else goes to them.
Extra.
And now that super spreader, you know, mentality type thing that begins to spread out, you know, mushroom out. Yeah. So I get what they're doing, but again, you know, we want to all stay safe, but we also want to live. You know, we don't want to live in fear. So I guess the question is, what do we do? A good model for this is look at what Italy has done. And that's going to be us. You know, there was a story I was listening to about, you know, the streets are pretty much vacant. And the reporter was giving a stand-up report. And he said, I'm out here by, I believe it's the Spanish Steps. And normally this is visited by tons of tourists and it's empty. So a guy went to his restaurant to save his food with a couple other employees. They grab the food. He stops. He takes a picture because he's local. And he's like, I've never seen this so vacant. And the police come and give him a ticket and say, get off the street. Is that going to happen here? Something like that? We're starting to see it. All the restaurants are closed. In Italy, everything is closed except for grocery stores and pharmacies. Is that what we're going to be dealing with next? And do you have enough toilet paper?
Well, and
like I said, it's all bought out.
Yeah.
We can't get any more.
The broadcast world too, it's really changing the way we do things. A lot of people will watch the news and not think about the people out there covering the news. I know our members do it, as do yours, and we're hearing about television stations saying, "Hey, guys, stay at home, cover from home," just because they don't want to take the steps of having people come in and potentially contaminate or infect a lot of people. I assume radio stations are doing that as well. You represent televisions and radio stations. What are you hearing on that end? How is this going to change fundamentally how coverage is done in broadcast?
That's a great question. How is it going to change the way it's done? It's hard to say. The stations are doing right now a great job of protecting the news folks. WGN, we met with them. They were great right out of the gate. We're trying to develop plans. Those plans change literally daily. The biggest problem, I think, for them is just having enough sanitizer, wipes, everything else to clean off. They're doing some deep cleaning stuff, you know, not just WGN, but, you know, the other stations as well. They want to protect their folks, so they're sending them home with the photographers. They're sending them home with the trucks so they can get to a news story. Let's just say there's breaking news somewhere. They can drive there. The reporters will take their own vehicle and meet them. So now there's not a double exposure to either or. One person can stand in front of the camera, the other one behind them. They don't have to get too sociable in shared spaces and that kind of thing. So that kind of coverage would be great. Editors can work from home. Everything is pretty much software driven. So if you have a good computer and a laptop, you can edit from home. All this stuff is file based. So as long as you have an internet connection, that can be done. So all that's good. It may be a little clunky with some of the editing and talking to producers because they're going to be on different sites, and you can't just walk up to somebody and say, I want to see this, I want to see that. It's going to be phones.
But it's an evolving situation.
It's an evolving situation. We hope they don't get used to that because it will suffer the longer that we go, but people are starving for news anyways.
Sure.
They would lose their mind if no one was saying anything at this point.
Very true.
That's why we're going live from Life Loving the Grind. We want to keep the information going when things are.
And we had the discussion. How do we proceed here? But I got to say, you know, WCPT, they're great. They're out here sanitizing stuff before we go on the air. It's just going that extra step. And well, you know, one question. I know a lot of people in Chicago are watching the Marquee Network, which is going to have a lot of your members participating, and that's fundamentally now probably been put on hold, changed in terms. What are you hearing about that? I'm sure there was a lot of excitement around that.
Their excitement, that's an interesting word. There was a lot of booing, you know, when it was announced, just because the rollout was so clunky. And now MLB is delayed opening day. So, I mean, this poor network can't catch a break. You know, that's a problem. Our folks are actually going in through one of labor contractor, so we don't have a direct connection with the Marquee, but we have the employees that are working there under one of our other contracts. It's kind of a convoluted third-party situation, but they want to work, But everywhere is suspending in-studio productions. We haven't heard anything from them, but it's business as usual. They haven't launched yet. I would suspect they will delay the launch and probably keep working to perfect their launch now. Gives them an extra 2 weeks, so some of the pressure's off. But again, if they can't get people to go in, we have a station here in town, WCIU, and they're wonderful, but they've just declared a state of emergency. They have to go on the air, and so they're willing to pay our people extra money, time and a half, and basically double time and a half just to show up. And there's some panic. Some members don't want to go in. So it depends on you, your comfort level with your employer, how safe your employer is going to keep you. So, everybody has a personal decision. Do I go to the store today or not go to the store today? Do I go to the restaurant? Well, that decision has been taken away from me. So now what do I do?
Well, starting tomorrow after work hours, we're going to have no restaurants and bars until March 30th.
So I'm going to go crazy just sitting at home.
Well, and all the kids that are sitting at home with with no schools. I mean, it's some serious stuff. People that need to go to work, have their kids watched. I mean, it's
so
definitely a serious economic.
It's the first time hearing about the WCIU emergency. What exactly does that mean? Like feeder column for our listeners who don't know, a journalist who chronicles the media industry chronicled another television station where there was a scare that ended up being unfounded, but got people thinking, hey, we better have a plan and a protocol. What was the issue with CIU? Just because I'm wondering kind of if other stations will be following route.
My suspicion, I was communicated with this through one of my stewards. He explained the situation as what the protocol is going to be moving forward if they declare a state of emergency.
Oh, okay.
They ended up doing that.
Oh.
So their state of emergency is they're encouraging anyone that can work from home. But as far as our technicians, to make sure that the station stays on the air and have to come in during the state of emergency, WCIU's really stepped up and made the sting a little less to come in. Although, like I said, some people, we have a member there who's on an indefinite leave of absence because he's a little nervous, obviously, about the coronavirus. So he's made a personal decision, and the company's been great. I've communicated directly with HR, and I asked, "Are you going to fire this person?" He said, "No, we're going to give this person the time off they need, obviously unpaid, till he feels comfortable coming back and what have you." So the employers are really, they're not taking that hard line. A lot of folks work for employers that they don't trust, that don't treat their people well. The folks that I deal with, WBBM, WGN, WCIU, WTTW, we've developed great relationships with the management there, and they're treating their people very well. So I have no complaints. It's just a matter of what do we do next? And like I said, that evolves hourly, basically.
And how much worse is this all going to get? So, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with you later on, and we're going to have Dr. Atif Fakhruddin to come in and talk about preventions and kind of get deeper into this coronavirus that has everybody in the whole country up in arms.
Yeah, we got to find out what to do, stay informed of what's going on, and you can do it at Life, Love, and the Grind. We'll join you in a couple minutes.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Azam Nizamuddin.
Thank you. I think that one.
I'm a Democrat running for Circuit Court Judge in Cage County. I've been an attorney for 20 years. I have worked in large law firms, small law firms, and I've had my own practice. I have worked
brother
in unity
So we'll
in the DuPage community.
then we'll have
I have fought for victims and the accused.
Is he sitting here?
I'm dedicated to impartiality, to make sure that everyone has equal access to justice, and to make sure that bias has no place in our legal system. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs.
Do you want me out?
I believe in an America an America where the content of your character matters more than your last name. With my decades of legal experience and my ongoing work to promote unity between diverse communities, I am ready to serve all the people of DuPage on the Circuit Court bench. So I'm asking for your vote. Please vote for Azam Nizamuddin for Circuit Court Judge on March 17th.
Paid for by friends of Azam Nizamuddin for Judge. Life, Love, and the Grind is proudly sponsored by Rich Lewandowski and our friends at Breaker Press, Chicagoland's top choice for union printing. We're a third-generation family-owned business that has been helping unions and political campaigns win since 1976. We've been involved in hundreds of winning elections, and we get our printed materials to you on time and on budget every time. Whether you're running for the courthouse or the White House, we will take you from concept to design and from print to mail or your supporters' front yards. Breaker Press can help you reach the voters you need. Call Rich at 773-852-5733 or email rich@breakerpress.com. For all of your political printing needs, visit us at breakerpress.com.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you're here with Sean and Raza, Life, Love, and the Grind. We just heard from business manager John Rizzo with 1220. And we're talking about the impact of how workers and the economy is kind of getting hurt with everything shut down.
I mean, this is no joke. It's an economic and a health crisis.
Yeah.
We focus a little bit on the economic repercussions to what's going on, but we want to find out, and our viewers obviously want to hear as well, what's going on in the, so tell us, Dr. Fakhruddin, tell us what's going on.
Fakhruddin, let's take it away and inform all these people of what we can do.
Well, first of all, let me start with this. In DuPage, they're saying that DuPage County, there might be a proclamation tomorrow, a disaster proclamation. Is all this founded? Is any of this an overreach, or is this exactly what should be happening?
So, this fear is very real. Obviously, and that's just because we don't know. This all started in China in December 2019 from one country across the continent, Europe, and here, 145 countries as of today. And of course, our cases are literally rising on a daily basis almost. So I have to check my stats a few hours a day to know what it is. It is a serious condition, but the good thing is, as long as we know how to handle it, we just cannot let panic, hysteria, just become so destructive that things that we can do, we cannot do. So, you asked me earlier, I'm a nephrologist, kidney specialist. People wonder, why am I doing on corona? We take care of patients who are really sick. They're immunocompromised. And we know that this virus gets to those who are immunocompromised and elderly patients. So I want to just get myself educated and then to take care of my patients and then again help anyone else who want to learn more about it.
They're saying that's the bigger concern, right? The elderly and those who have a compromised immune system are more susceptible.
Lung issues, immune disorders, diabetes, maybe people that are overweight. Is that kind of who it's hitting, or?
That is correct. So this, coronavirus is a family of viruses. It has 4 common types, or 3 common that we've heard. One, our common cold is from coronavirus. 10% of a common cold comes from coronavirus. Then there's 2 more you've heard, SARS and MERS. Now this COVID-19, it has a name called SARS-CoV-2, because it resembles more of SARS family than others. So that's why they're calling it SARS-CoV-2 virus. So, we know that it starts from bat. There's a intermediate animal, and then it comes to humans. The way it spreads in humans, it's through droplet. What that means is this: when we cough or sneeze, if we're infected, the virus, it stays in our saliva, body secretion, and it falls on surfaces. When we touch, and then with our hands, when we touch a mouth, nose, or eye, it gets into the human body. So that's one mode of transmission. The other mode of transmission is through, if someone's coughing, sneezing right at you within 6 feet. So that goes, again, if it lands in your nose and your mouth, you're going to get it. Airborne, thank God, so far, we don't think it's airborne, but it can very well be. With coronavirus, it's changing, or the guideline information so rapidly. As of right now, we don't think that's the main, method of spread. It is mainly droplet, but yes, it could be airborne. We're not too sure as of this point. So and again, you're right. It does affect those with reduced immunity, elderly patients. If you have lung disease, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, it is affecting younger folks as well. But the good thing is, in terms of how severe, how fatal this is, it's only causing death mainly in if you're 80 plus or older patients. We've heard of one child dying from coronavirus, but again, it is mainly hitting the elderly population.
Doctor, we have a call coming in, so we're going to take our life into our own hand. And yeah, go ahead and hit that if you would, Sean, real quick.
Sure.
I'm sure they want to talk to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yes, you're on the air with Sean Raza and Dr. Fakhruddin. So what's your question, caller?
I can't. Yeah. Well, we're gonna try to answer this. This is a lot of this is a long question. Let's try to break this down. So, pretty much just for other listeners, obviously this is a serious issue. We're talking about how do people survive without getting their medication. Bars and restaurants starting tomorrow after work are going to be closed till March 30th. I read, grocery stores, I think the rest of that stuff will be open, but this is a serious issue, doctor. I mean, how do we keep everybody healthy, fed, and
well supplied
with everything they need, like medicine and medication?
So, that's the panic and hysteria, which is to be expected with this uncertain condition. But as of today, if you look at the recommendations, it is quarantine, isolation. If you're sick, if your family member is sick, or you're elderly or immunocompromised. If you're still young and healthy, you can still go and get groceries, go get your medications. So that panic should not hit us. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in a month or so later on, or a few weeks later. But as of right now, as of today, things are, if you're healthy, you're young, you can still go get, go to the grocery store, do your groceries. Of course, you shouldn't be there for hours, get the basic needs, pick up your medication, and if you can, get refills for at least 90 days, so you're set there. And I'm not saying we should hoard food items and stuff, but at least get enough food to last you 2-3 weeks, so that panic can be taken away. So yes, we are recommending self-quarantine isolation, but that is strictly for those who have the infection or they're exposed to. On the same token, large gatherings are not a good idea, and obviously a restaurant, pubs, other places which you don't need to go, it's best to avoid those places. But at this point in time, there's no shutting down of grocery stores, no pharmacies, everything's open. So, and hopefully with Donald Trump declaring national emergency, with funds getting released, National Guards available, if we ever get to that point, let's hope and pray that we get all the help we can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a serious issue, and obviously we have a lot of calls coming in. We have a lot of people that are watching. I think it's so. Where do we go if someone is infected? Someone is sick and they have a high fever and they start showing symptoms of this coronavirus. What is the best way to handle that?
So, a few things again, the guidelines are changing with this. When you said someone infected, so we need to know what are the symptoms of this condition. So the problem is, since the symptoms resemble a common cold as well, like the symptoms that we are common with this is dry cough, low grade to high grade fever, and a lot of malaise, body aches, things like that. And some people get nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Again, those symptoms are common with any flu-like illness. So it's very difficult for us to know what it is. So if you have these symptoms, number one, do not panic. Hopefully, and most likely, it is not COVID-19 or coronavirus. But even if someone has it, the treatment is self-quarantine. We only are recommending you go seek medical advice if there's a history of travel or high-grade fever for 3-4 more days or really short of breath. At this point in time, if you have these mild symptoms, it's best to self-quarantine yourself. If symptoms are getting out of control, they're getting worse, then you call your medical doctor, get advice from them. At this point in time, until actually yesterday, you couldn't just go get a check for yourself for coronavirus. We have to involve public health, and tests have been limited, but with hopefully Monday, Tuesday, tests will become a lot more easily available. But at this point in time, recommendation is if symptoms are very mild with these, it's best to self-quarantine yourself, and no visitors, no handshaking, use sanitizers, wipe down the surfaces, things like that.
So more and more companies are saying, hey, stay home, but get a doctor's note. Are you saying from a medical standpoint, it's almost better not to go physically to the doctor?
So I would say if you have these symptoms, you must call your doctor first, because if there's high suspicion, if you go to a doctor's office, the chance you'll spread more than you'll harm more than you do good. So there are recommendations to our patients. If you have to go, you have to mask yourself, and sometimes they might call public health and they may give you directions further what needs to be done.
Is there ever a concept of people get nervous or shamed just that they might end up having this, or they try to convince themselves or not go to a doctor just not to get a worst case scenario? Because you see what's happening now. It seems like anytime that's out there, there's a stigma. Okay, this person has been in contact with. I don't know how this plays with HIPAA laws, but obviously this is a national emergency. Does it ever kind of scare people out of going and getting or disclosing what they're doing? Or have you guys found that, or is there a medical phenomenon like that?
I think at this point in time, everybody wants to gets tested. I don't think there's anybody shying away that we've come across, but I think we are seeing the other end where people just with mild regular cough, they want to be tested. So I don't think that we are there, that people are just shying away and not trying to get medical advice.
So the most important thing then, if you are having any symptoms, stay away from elderly people, stay away from people that have maybe immune diseases. That's the worst thing you can do to kind of spread it, where the most vulnerable people in our society are those that are maybe more obese or diabetes and, kind of elderly, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So that's, because it's hard. It's, like I say, they're shutting down a lot, but it's hard to stay away from everybody. Some people are, what if they're taking care of their elderly parents? What if they're taking care of their grandparents? That's an issue.
It is difficult. It's for sure. It is difficult for everyone, but just so that we understand, even it is 80% people will recover from this. That's what we know as of today. So the good thing is the recovery is about 80%. 15% can get serious, 5% can become critical. So remember, 80% will recover from this. Mm-hmm. So that should give us some, relief that not everybody is going to end up in the hospital. The concerns here is, of course, if we cannot contain it, if it becomes widespread, then yes, it can overwhelm the healthcare system. Then it can become a big issue. But let's hope and pray that we do our part. We try to contain it, and then hopefully it won't be that much of a big issue, which it has the potential to become.
Sean, it looks like we have a couple other callers.
Why don't we take another caller real quick? All right. Line two. All right, we're here with David from the north side. I need the headphones. All right, David, well, I hate to cut you off, but we're going to kind of wrap up here. I want to just repeat this question. So how do we deter between the corona, between the regular sickness, just a regular common cold? I want to thank you for your call, David. And also, you know, he mentioned, and I'd like to mention, our city's in good hands. Our great governor, J.B. Pritzker, is doing great things and showing great leadership. So how do we determine between a common cold and this corona?
You know, symptoms-wise, it will be very difficult, but few things that corona typically causes a dry cough and, you know, fever. Common cold, you have runny nose, usually your cough is productive, there's some sputum, so that's one. But again, it doesn't mean, these symptoms don't mean, you know, that for sure you do have common cold versus corona. Few things one can just think of if you've been to a nursing home, a hospital, or a lab where people you have exposure, or you've traveled to those countries where there's high incidence of coronavirus. Of course, if you've had those exposure, you have these symptoms, then yes, you will be tested and you should be concerned and you should notify your physician and get tested for it. But if you don't have exposure, you don't have, you're immunocompromised, then it's unlikely there'll be coronavirus. And again, it is just, it's very easy for a physician to say that, but from patients' perspective, it is difficult. It is new. It is widespreading. You know, when you go on social media, everything you're watching is coronavirus. So it does put this fear factor, and it's you know, it's human psyche as well. Once we don't have a closure, what is this? Do I have it? When will I get it? Or will I infect someone else? Once we don't have a closure, because we don't. Even healthcare industry, I can tell you, we're meeting on a daily basis. We still don't know what's the best thing to do, but we've been given guidelines. So there are people working behind the scene constantly, almost 24/7. Once we learn something new, of course, it'll be shared with the public and through physicians. But again, at this point in time, symptoms are hard to say what do you have. But again, exposure is something, if you haven't had it and you're not immunocompromised, it's most likely a common cold.
Wow, I bet you must be the most popular guy on your block now with all these questions coming. While you're trying to do your own thing, I'm sure they're just hoarding around trying to get these questions answered. So thank you for coming on and answering the question for a lot of people who want to know what's going on and what we should be doing. I think this has been very informative.
And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks for our callers for having questions. And please, on our Facebook Live, keep the questions coming. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be back with Dr. Atif, and we'll be back with John Rizzo. We're gonna finish out the show with all four
talk
of us.
about how health and also the working conditions meld and what we should be doing. Let's try to set up our own protocols on how this is working, because it's an evolving situation we're all trying to learn about. So we'll talk about it when we come back.
Sean and Ross.
This is Louis Kyer from GWC Injury Lawyers. Now that cannabis is legal in Illinois, an understanding of the law and the risks associated with ingesting cannabis is critically important. Under the Cannabis Act, you can legally ingest marijuana only in a very limited number of places. Not in public, not on government or school premises, and not even in your own condo or apartment if your landlord has a no smoking policy. A positive test is potentially lethal to your rights in 3 key areas: employment, work injuries, and driving. So if your employer has a zero tolerance drug and alcohol policy, you can be terminated if you fail a drug test, even though your cannabis consumption was legal. If you're hurt on the job and test positive for cannabis, the legal presumption is that your accident was caused in part because of the cannabis, and your workers' compensation rights can be totally denied. DUI laws have not changed. Impaired means impaired, and a DUI due to cannabis or alcohol can ruin your career. If you want to indulge in legal THC before you ingest, read up on your rights at gwclaw.com.
Megan Financial is an independent retirement and financial services firm dedicated to the working men and women of organized labor. Megan provides straightforward, custom-fit financial advice and specializes in defined benefit and defined contribution pension plans, as well as participant and retirement advice. Megan Financial has the knowledge and experience to navigate the union member through all phases of life.
It doesn't help because some of this stuff is in the way, but he's in the
1090.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member FINRA, SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Office location at 5321 South 94th Avenue, Orland Park, Illinois, 60462.
You're joining us on Life, Love, and the Grind. Raza Siddiqui, Sean Allen. We're joined by John Rizzo and Dr. Fakhruddin, who's basically walking us through and helping us decipher how we're going to get through the next couple of weeks from a working perspective and from a medical perspective. Sean, what questions have come to mind for you as you've heard what's going on?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how do we decipher between coronavirus and a cold? I mean, if anyone's sneezing, coughing, or if maybe they have a fever, I mean, I just don't want people to jump to the conclusion of, oh my God, I have coronavirus and just quarantine everybody. I mean, that's a real issue. So I think the biggest thing is people need to know the severity of in between the two. And I think that's kind of been the big question coming through, you know?
Yeah. So if you could weigh in on that.
Yeah.
So again, I think it is a big fear, big concern for almost everybody that what do I have? If you haven't had exposure to someone with coronavirus, there is no travel history, or if you haven't traveled, if you haven't been in large gatherings, or you haven't had with someone who's sick, chances of you having corona is less likely. It's pretty common cold. I'm not trying to downplay here that you couldn't get coronavirus, but again, common cold will still be a lot more frequent than coronavirus. So if you don't have those risk factors, you're not elderly, not immunocompromised, you haven't been in a large gathering with people who are sick, then it's unlikely that you would have coronavirus. But again, if these symptoms persist, they're not going away, they're getting worse, you need to seek medical advice for sure.
So a quick question here that I got a text. So is it possible to get a virus through a pool, through a lake, through a hot tub? Is there anything in that nature? I mean, like even with these gyms that are still open, through saunas, is that a big possibility to get it?
So the most common transmission is through droplet. That means if someone's sneezed or coughed within 6 feet of where you are, or if their body secretions get into your mouth or eyes or nose, you'll get it. So of course, if someone's sick and has gone into a pool, then there's a good chance that if you go swim, there's a very good chance you'll get it. But most common spread is through contact surfaces, people touching that surface, and then your hands get the germs, then you put it in your mouth and eyes and nose.
Doctor, so I'm going to ask you something. So John and I work with a lot of media professionals who are out there trying to cover the story to inform the public, keep us safe. What can our members do to keep safe? I mean, with the droplet contact, I mean, microphones that might be in their face, can these potentially...
So I think number one thing that we must do is wash our hands with soap and water. And, typically when you wash your hands, we spend 6-7 seconds. The recommendation is 20 seconds. It is a long time. Try to do it yourself. 20 seconds, it does feel, no big deal, but it is. When you do it, so that's a must. So that's number one, wash your hands frequently, multiple times a day. Again, comment, in your profession, I see tabletop and all that. It needs to be wiped with alcohol-based sanitizers. And if you touch it, try not to touch your face or, nose or eyes so you don't transmit the infection. And if anybody's sick, don't go around them and avoid shaking hands.
John, tell us what you guys at IBEW are doing to improve the environmental health conditions of your workers. I know you were fighting for, and I know you were showing me what you had. Tell me about some of the initiatives.
Well, again, working a lot with management. The television stations, the brick and mortar places, they have hand sanitizer throughout the buildings. I guess some of them may be finding it hard to get a hold of that. Distributors are out unless you're willing to spend, a couple $100 here and there on cases of, gallons of, alcohol, make it your own, that type of thing. They're using hand sanitizing gels throughout the building so everyone can come in and they're excluding guests from coming in, so limiting the amount of people that are out on the street to come in and possibly spread an infection. So they're going to be Skyping in or similar technology to do more remote access. The union is on board with that and allowing that, so our people don't have to be exposed to potential people.
That's one of the protocols I know I push in our union too is, hey, you don't have to go out and interview these people if there's a technology that can kind of separate a physical barrier between you and someone who could potentially be infected. So I think it's good to see where we can work together, because these are unprecedented times that we haven't in any collective bargaining contract really thought about, and it's kind of an evolving situation, because I'm sure it is in building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well.
So my fear, this question is to you, doctors, do we see this getting worse? I mean, so starting tomorrow, if people haven't heard, it's, all bars and restaurants will be closed after work hours till March 30th. If you do need food, please go and shop tonight. Grocery stores are still open, but where do we go from here? Is it going to be worse? Is it going to be a bigger shutdown in 2-3 weeks, a month?
The real answer is we don't know. So because the way it's spreading, again, from 0 to 3,000 in almost 6 weeks, that's considered very fast and rapid spread. And of course, we weren't testing everybody. So the answer is we don't know. What we know is how to contain this, and that's all we can do. So what will happen in 2-3 weeks? Again, we don't know, but things that we know we should implement to the best we can. And I think it's been done at government level. Hopefully all, employers are trying to do their best. If you don't have to come to work, you can work remotely. Schools who already have online, they're doing online courses and e-learning and stuff. So, but to answer your question, we don't know.
So, I mean, being a building trades guy, I mean, there's huge projects, high rises in Chicago.
The media can't just cover the news.
No, we got 300-400 workers in a building. I mean, how do we tell guys that don't get paid to not go to work? And so what are the best precautions that they can take as they're still going to these job sites?
I think if they have to go to job and their employers, they don't have any option to work from home or things like that, then if they have to show up, again, best is try to keep a distance 6 feet if they can. I mean, some jobs might not have that option for you, but if you have that option, keep a distance of 6 feet at least. And if you see someone obviously cough and someone who feels or looks ill, just don't go close to them.
John, we were talking about in our industry, there's that mentality in broadcast that people want to go out there, take the extra step to tell the story. We were talking about the bridge collapse several years ago, where people did what they could to get the best shots, to tell the best story they could. How do we get through to this type of mentality that, hey, this is kind of an unprecedented thing? Some of my members asked, I mean, is it okay? I don't have work for a month with sports canceling. Should I be filing for unemployment? There was in our industry a stigma years ago that, hey, if you file, you may be blacklisted. What are we telling people?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing that you presented are the situation with the cowboys, the ones that go out and no matter what, because we work in a gig economy, they try to look the best to the employer as the daredevil, the risk taker, and that's going to get people killed with this virus if they spread it to a lot of times you don't know it, but the people that you work with may have elderly parents or grandparents that they're exposed to. And if they get it and pass it on, doc, back me up here, but you could put their lives at risk. And that's something that we have to get through to these people, that no matter what, I know you need a paycheck. We all need a paycheck. I get it. And hopefully there's relief coming, but don't put others at risk. Don't just think of yourself here and your paycheck. It's other people as well. I'm sorry, the second part of your question.
Well, in terms of applying for unemployment, I know there was a stigma in our industry before because sometimes the contractors would be hit with the paperwork. That mentality's changed. I know.
People, they get it. I mean, look, I know businesses are in trouble, especially in the corporate side, the entertainment side that I worked in, with McCormick Place basically shutting down, shows canceling up to 60 days out. A person like me that would work freelance no longer has work available. Do I go out and do I look for other work and not tell people that I'm not feeling well or what have you? What do we do? So your unemployment is a right. So it's a different time. The contractors are people that get it. They're paying the unemployment insurance. That's what it's there for. I mean, for emergencies. And if this isn't an emergency, I don't know what is. So you got to apply for it. And again, if we've talked about it, if members are getting pushed back or blacklisted or what have you, I want to talk to those employers and I want to find out what the issue is, because we're all people. Even the employers are people. I have a good suspicion that they're good people and they'll do the right thing, and they do.
Well, and the one thing we all take pride in is, our union membership and our unions. I mean, safety and health is a huge thing. So, I mean, there's no point in being union if we're not sitting here speaking on the point of saying, hey, you know what, we take care of our members. Safety comes first.
And working together.
And working
together about this. It's been a very long time, 12 years, 10 years since IBEW and Nabets sat down, and members were kind of saying, hey, this is probably the time you guys should collaborate. They're also saying, let's educate our members as to what's happening. So this was, I believe, a very good platform. And I'd like to thank you again, John Rizzo, for joining us from IBEW. It was absolutely, and again, with building trades, I'm sure you guys are getting together and discussing in this unprecedented environment.
Yeah, it really is unprecedented. And I want everyone just to stay calm and just let's see where we go. Like you say, we have no knowing where we're going to be in 2-3 weeks. So please go shopping. You know, get food. Don't buy 10,000 rolls of toilet paper. I'm sure you'll be okay without it. But you know what? Go shopping and just, you know what? Put other people first and think before you do things. If you're sick, just lay low. It's nothing wrong with just taking a breath, relaxing for a week or two, and kind of showing respect to maybe people that are a little bit more vulnerable and keeping our composure.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to highlight some of the good that labor has done in this time. Like my wife, Sarah Sadat, joined CWA Unified Council yesterday, went to the greater Chicago Food Depository and actually handed out food because or boxed food to be handed out because some children are going to be without school, without a place to actually get these meals that they rely on. And it's good to see labor organizations stepping up and taking the initiative to help with their community, because at the end of the day, we are the community. Yeah. A lot of people
labor's on the front lines of that community more times than not.
Bringing you news, bringing you the buildings, bringing you what keeps civilization going.
And Life Loving the Grind is bringing you the health and the news and the economy and all of it together. So
every Sunday at 3 o'clock, and we're glad that you joined us and glad that we were able to inform you and answer some of your questions. Just to let some of our members and anyone listening know, we are going to have a podcast, a special podcast where we bring on Jeff Jacobson, who's going to go over some of the minutia of if you find yourself having to file for temporary unemployment, how that goes about getting done, and kind of walk through some of those steps, just again to help our members understand in this unprecedented time the avenues and resources available.
And if you missed this episode, if you want to find it, you can go on Facebook at Life Loving the Grind. You can go on YouTube at Life Loving Grind and hear from Dr. Atif Fakhruddin and John Rizzo with IBEW Business Manager 1220. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. You got Sean and Raza, Life Loving the Grind.
We'll see you next Sunday, 3 o'clock, and tune in the meantime to our Facebook.
Thank you.